Welcome to Storytime with Angel. I'm Angel Martinez. We are really excited about our Mischief Corner Books anthology for Christmas this year called Chestnuts Roasting. And one of the reasons we're really excited is because we are going to have the second installment of Tony Griffin's Smoky Mountain Bears in this upcoming anthology. You might remember the original story, Smoky Mountain Bears 1, was called A Bear in the Woods. And that was actually released in our very first Mischief Corner Books anthology, Cabin for Two. And that's quite a while ago now, actually. That was over a year ago. So we have the second story that's going to come out in the Mischief Corner Books anthology, Chestnuts Roasting, the Christmas anthology. But what I wanted to do is revisit the first one today, and then we'll do an excerpt from the new one, Smoky Mountain Bears 2, on Thursday. So this is actually an excerpt from A Bear in the Woods, and the very, very brief blurb for that reads, "A bear shifter tries to convince his mate that he's not crazy while fighting threats against his own life." So here we have, in this excerpt, the first meeting between Vincent and our bear shifter. So let's take a look here. Vincent slept late that morning, waking around lunchtime. Groaning, he stretched and reluctantly left the comfort of his bed. After showering and brushing his teeth, Vincent decided he really needed some food. He cringed at having to re-wear his clothes from the day before. He knew he had no other choice. His thoughts once more went back to the previous night. He could have sworn he saw a black bear sleeping on his balcony. After pacing inside for 10 minutes and wondering what in the world he would do about the damn thing, he went to double-check, only to find nothing there. Maybe his mind had played a trick on him due to how tired he had been, because he didn't think it would have been possible for the bear to climb over the rail and drop down to the ground below. Come to think of that, how in the hell had the damn thing gotten there in the first place? Vincent shook his head. He must have been seeing things. That was the only logical explanation. Once he was dressed, Vincent grabbed his keys and wallet and headed for his car. First stop had to be the office to check in, and then find out where he could get some food. He would be here for 10 days, thanks to Mandy, and he wasn't planning to eat takeout for that entire time. He had a fully functioning kitchen in the cabin, and he planned to make use of it. Making his way back down the mountain, Vincent was quite happy with himself for only making one wrong turn. Once he had settled his check-in with the very perky young lady behind the desk, he asked for and was given directions to a supermarket. Back in his car, Vincent followed directions down to the bottom of the mountain and the set of traffic lights where he turned left. 5 minutes down the road, he pulled into the parking lot of the local supermarket. 3/4 of an hour later, he exited, pushing a cart filled with food and drinks. After he finished loading his car, he returned the cart to the bay and got back in his vehicle. His turnoff was easy to see, as it was marked with the first set of traffic lights after he left the supermarket. It took Vincent a little longer to get back to his cabin, however, as he turned right earlier than he should have, and found himself in an entirely different area, covered with even more mountain cabins. He turned the car around at the entrance, which had been marked by a small but beautiful waterfall. Apparently, Vincent wasn't allowed to climb said waterfall, though, as there were signs posted against such actions. Vincent thought the waterfall to be too small to be worth the effort of climbing, and chuckled at the lengths some people went to. Once back in the relative safety of the cabin roads, Vincent made his way to his place. So what if he had taken the scenic route? It had been worth it. Pulling up in front of Rest Assured, Vincent turned off the car and popped the trunk so he could start hauling his groceries inside. With his hands full of heavy bags, Vincent slowly made his way up the stairs to the door, where he fumbled several times trying to enter the correct lock combination. "Here, let me help you with that." A deep voice came from behind him as a hand reached out to take the bags from his right hand. Vincent screamed. He wasn't proud of it, but the man had scared the crap out of him. He had been so busy concentrating on the door, he'd never even heard someone come up behind him. "Shit, sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," the stranger added hastily after Vincent's very unmanly reaction. "It's okay," Vincent said as his heart started to slow down to something resembling a normal rhythm again. Vincent turned so he could get a good look at the man behind him and almost swallowed his tongue. He would like to say he came face to face with the other man, but the reality of the situation was more like face to chest. Jesus, just how tall is this guy? Vincent thought as he stepped back so he would be able to take in the stunning hunk of man meat in his entirety. He was jarred to a halt when his back hit the still-closed front door, but Vincent didn't care. His gaze swept from the top of the stranger's head all the way down to his feet. The man must have at least a foot, if not more, on Vincent. Thick black hair covered his head, and what looked like a 2 or 3 day growth currently darkened his face. Vincent had always liked the look and feel of a little stubble. The piercing blue eyes seemed to sparkle at him above a very regal-looking nose. Making his way down the stranger's body, Vincent made note of the dark curly hair that escaped from beneath the almost too small t-shirt the man wore. Vincent bit the inside of his cheek to hold back a whimper at how much he wanted to run his fingers through the thick mat of chest hair and seek out a pair of nipples to tweak and tease with his tongue. Moving further down, Vincent tried with all his might to ignore the large bulge encased behind the fly of what looked like a much-worn pair of jeans. The thick thighs, that were no doubt covered with hair like the man's chest, and what he could see of his arms, filled his jeans to capacity. Last but not least, boots encased very large feet. Vincent gulped, wondering if it was true about what they said. Large feet means large... Vincent broke the thought off before he could complete it, but his eyes strayed back to the stranger's fly. He wanted to beg this man to let him drop to his knees and worship him where the damn bulge twitched and seemed to grow even larger, if that was possible. Vincent had no idea what he was supposed to say. It wasn't until he felt the rough pat of a thumb caress the back of his hand that Vincent actually looked down. To his horror, he realized they had been standing together all this time holding hands as the man had tried to take his grocery bags for him. Little shocks coursed through his body from the contact, and Vincent wasn't able to hide the shiver as his body reacted. "Thanks," he said dumbly as he reluctantly let go of the groceries so the man could help him. He turned around and faced the wooden door before he could do something stupid like drop to his knees and beg the man to fuck him. He had no idea why he was having such a strong reaction to this man. He honestly could never remember his body acting like this previously. He lifted his right hand to unlock the door, only to realize his hand shook. "You okay?" The deep voice softened as he stepped closer to Vincent. "Yes, thank you. I think I might just be a little more exhausted than I realized," Vincent said, hoping to Christ that that was the reason behind his body's strange behavior. He quickly entered the code and opened the door, stepping inside and making his way to the kitchen. The stranger followed him and placed his bags on the kitchen counter. Would you mind helping me with the rest?" Vincent asked. "Not at all. I'm Christian Packard, by the way," he stated as he held his hand out to shake. Vincent swallowed the sudden lump he had in his throat at the thought of touching Christian again. "Vincent Marsden, it's nice to meet you," he replied as he shook the other man's hand. Vincent could have sworn he felt little electric tingles racing up and down his arm, but he shook it off as silliness. They headed back outside to the car and gathered up the rest of the groceries. Christian carried the case of water and the other half-carton of beer Vincent had bought, as well as 2 more bags. Vincent had to admit it being a little spellbound watching the play and flex of muscles under the shirt. He didn't know what it was about this man that fascinated him so. Yes, the guy could probably have any man he wanted with just the snap of his fingers. That was, if he even swung that way, which Vincent sincerely hoped he did. But there was something else, too. Vincent wanted to get naked and snuggle in front of a roaring fire and spend lazy days in bed, and just sit and talk for hours on end about nothing. He silently berated himself over his silly thoughts. What scared him most was the fact that wasn't who Vincent was. He didn't get naked with strangers, but with Christian he had a feeling that might change, and he just didn't know if that was a good thing or not. Christian cleared his throat. He looked at Vincent with a raised eyebrow and knowing smile. Vincent blushed deeply, realizing he'd been staring at the man this entire time. He quickly grabbed the remaining 2 bags and closed the trunk of the car before scurrying back inside, not looking to see if Christian followed or not. Smoky Mountain Bears takes place in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and the reason for that is that that's actually where we all met, the Mischief Corner Books crew. And I think Tony was fascinated by the geography and the landscape, because it's just not something that you have in Darwin, the mountains and the coniferous forests. So that's where we have the setting. This is the first one. The second one, as I said, we'll take a look at on Thursday. I am wearing my Mischief Corner Books shirt today with the entire crew as animals. And just as an aside, if you want your own Mischief Corner Books shirt or various other Mischief Corner Books things that are becoming available, we do have a Redbubble site now. If you want to take a look at that, and you can have your very own. That's it for today. We'll be back with Smoky Mountain Bears 2 on Thursday, and we'll read a little excerpt then. Thanks for listening.